Cool. Hello, everybody. I am Brandon with Roadmap Riders, and you are here today with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Nick Fullen-Collins. Nick, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey guys. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. It was a pleasure to read all your scripts. Yeah, again, I'm Nick Fullen-Collins. My background is in development and production. I just recently left HBO. I was there for a year and a half where I worked in drama and then moved over to talent development where I worked overseeing HBO's writers and directors program, helped oversee that. And currently I'm in the process of launching my own production company where I'm developing my own TV and film content.
No, awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So yeah, tonight everybody's going to get about 10 minutes. I will jump in at the 9-minute mark and be a bummer and let you know it's time to wrap things up. Please be respectful of everybody's time. When I give you the 1-minute warning, start to wrap things up so we don't go over. And yeah, that's about it. I think our first person up is Cece, and
right.
We'll go from there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, no problem. Cece, how you doing?
I'm fine. I'm in New York.
Okay, nice. I was just in New York in March. That's great.
Oh,
Love it. Cool. Well, one question that I like to ask everybody, the writers when I read is first, what inspired you to write this particular script? And it's, I think it's a unique idea in the first place. So kudos to you for that. But yeah, what was kind of your inspiration behind it?
Well, I just kind of fell into it in that I was, I felt like I wanted to get in shape and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just happened to go into the studio and they taught Muay Thai there. And they said, well, first, I think you need to do strength and conditioning and get ready, And, just working out with these guys that were, I feel like they're warriors. I've never been around such incredible athletes before.
Mm-hmm.
I would watch them do their training after my strength and conditioning. And there's a spirituality to it, but also, it's still, martial arts, and there's, just the training and the kicking and the punching. I just was intrigued that someone would enjoy doing that. Like, for example, there was one student before my class who was 12 years old, and he's in fights and everything. And part of the training is he would be laying on the ground and his trainer would be pounding him on the stomach with this piece of rubber while this kid's parents were there. And I was thinking, wow, they know that their kid is getting pounded. But, it sort of became like that. And I just developed a real respect for them. And then there were female athletes also, fighters. And I guess there's a character in the story who passes away, Elliot. And unfortunately, a friend of mine, she was a single parent. She, her son almost finished with high school. She worked hard to send him to Catholic school. He was Black. And then she found out he was going to have a baby, and she got all upset, but then she readjusted things and helped him with college and the baby. And then, got that okay. But then 2 years later, he went down south to a family reunion, and he bumped into the wrong guy, and this guy just took out a pistol and killed him.
Oh, wow.
So, I really, I feel like Elliot, I see this show going on with flashbacks because I feel like he's incredible. He's not my friend's son, but I feel that he has elements of his personality that is so attractive and charismatic that unfortunately some people are jealous of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just made it like this whole piece. I've seen what violence can do to a mother, to a family, and I don't want to, glorify it, but definitely show respect to the family in the situation.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's really great. I have a few notes for you. I would say with your opening character, Sojourner, I would be more descriptive on her attributes. Because I want to, like you said, muscular, but I would be descriptive. Is she muscular like a Serena Williams, or is she like a track athlete where she's lean and athletic? I would be very specific. I mean, is she attractive? I would add as many descriptive elements to her character, because we do know that she's a martial artist and we do know there's going to be some type of combat, but it would be good to know the viewer, like what type of description from a female standpoint are you giving, or are you trying to convey? And then my question, one of my questions with the Gigi character, you know, given that Sojourner is 17 and Gigi's 70, you made her. I'm sorry.
Her great,
right? Why did you choose that versus grandmother? Because from an age standpoint, I mean that, you know, that's believable.
Well, I felt that her parents, you know, I don't know. I just saw that there'd been a lot of death in her family, and she was one of the last relatives left. That, you know, Sojourner's mother had died in giving birth to her, and her father had died in the ring, and her grandparents one had died from cancer and one in a car accident. So maybe I need to make Gigi a little older then.
I possibly would, because I think 17 to 70 is very reasonable to be her grandmother. And so if it's okay if you don't, but I would add in there those elements, like I mean, Gigi's, her family tree, if her parents died, her grandmother died, I would definitely highlight that, if that's the case. Because, I think you could put grandmother, in the age difference, I think could be believable.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you.
And then the whole, I mean, I guess, you know, in the first 10 pages, the climax within the 10 pages is the gun, the shooting. And I felt like from a visual standpoint, it was a little confusing as far as where did the gunfire go? You know, it out of nowhere, the gunfire happened and then Gigi got hit. But did the bullet go through the window of Gigi's room? Was somebody outside? Like, where, from your point of view, like walk me through that. Like, what am I supposed to visually see?
Right. I saw it as a drive-by through the window.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it hitting, going into Gigi's room. Gigi was in her room and it hit her.
In the living room, sitting in the rocking chair, knitting in the living room. And the part of the story would be determined, like, in my opinion, it was somebody after Sojourner. They had just seen her come in, and they hit Gigi sort of by accident.
Okay. Yeah, I would be a little more.
But it was through the window.
Okay. Yeah, I would be a little more specific on that, just as far as like where the bullet was traveling, how it entered, where did it travel, and then where was Gigi at specifically in that. And then in continuation to that, you know, you described when Gigi got hit as a pretty red pattern. I think the word pretty kind of confuses the reader of what that's supposed to be. I mean, obviously it's a bullet, it's a wound. I would just change that to another adjective.
And not make it.
Not like, use pretty. Yeah, I think pretty, I don't think is the right context of a word to use within that, because it is a wound, you know. And it's a wound, and ultimately, and I don't know, because I only read the first 10 pages, but she's obviously in critical condition. Right. So I would use a different word for that.
I guess my thinking was that, in a way, it was like this abstract design there was a beauty to it, but in reality, it was a horrific event. That's why I did it, but I can see the point.
I definitely think so. And I think from an emotional, it's not only horrific for the literal sense, but I think an emotional sense, because right prior to that, Sojourner is saying that I'm going to get you out of here. Like, I'm going to win this tournament and we're going to get out of, these projects. Right. And then it happened. Right. And then she's in critical condition and she's only 17 and she's already lost all her family. So it is a very serious emotional thing. So I think if you really compound that in your description of the wound, I think that would add even more feeling to it, more heart to it.
So, you mean just a stronger description, because I'm not going to have a lot of exposition about her family.
Right. No. I'm just talking. Yeah. I mean, we don't know that, but now that you explain that, you gave the backstory to that, it adds on to it. I mean, she's Sojourner is someone that's 17, not even an adult yet, and she's gone through a lot, and all she has is her great grandmother. And the fact that she might lose her right before something really good has happened to her life, and she's doing this for her great grandmother, it's an emotional experience. And so I think you can show that with your words, with the description. Like, that scene that happened and then right after her being in the hospital is a very devastating scene. So I think using a certain type of words to showcase that to the reader, I think is important.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried to explain why, but no, I get your point.
Yeah. And then, so that's pretty much the notes that I had. And then to answer your question that you left on the email, as far as from a business standpoint, I think you're right. I mean, one thing I will say that TV, if you look at with a trend right now, strong female leads are doing really well on TV. So I think you have something there with that. But, you're right. Like the one series about the female pitcher that did get canceled after one season. Iron Fist, which is a Marvel series, but didn't do too well with Netflix, but it's in the world of martial arts. One of the co-leads, I don't know if you watched the show, but one of the co-leads is a female character, didn't do too well. So I don't know, as far as the world of martial arts, specifically Muay Thai, would be at this moment the best angle to pitch a project. But on the flip side, I think something like mixed martial arts, MMA, that's obviously a very, very popular combat. It's the most popular combat sport right now. Are more an easier look for Hollywood versus Muay Thai, just given kind of what's the track record with what's going on right now.
And I guess the thing for me, I appreciate you saying that and all your comments.
You have about a minute left.
I guess for me, important part is the spirituality of it. And, mixed martial arts, I'm not there with that. Mm-hmm. But I appreciate you saying that. And it's something to consider. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I always preface my comments, it's, I always say, okay, I could tell people what the trend is and what's popular right now, what's kind of what the executives or agents are looking for and whatnot. But I always preface my comments that that's never the end all be all, because it's always about the talent you attach. You get the right showrunner, the right producer or talent attached to it, you never know, so I always like to preface my comments with that. But I just wanted to respond to that because I know you asked that question in your email.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good luck to pick it up for me.
No problem. Well, yeah. Well, best of luck to you. And thanks again for allowing me to read that.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you. Next up is Khalid.
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Hey, real quick, Brandon, I had Marie up next. I mean, it's fine to go, but I just didn't know if you had the same list as I do, as Dorian sent.
Yeah. I had her up next too, but I don't see her on here. So. Okay.
All right, cool. We'll go with Khalid. Hey, man, how's it going?
Fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing well. So yeah, just like before, I asked Cece, can you give me just a real quick background on your inspiration towards the script that you wrote?
Honestly, when I wrote it, I was having my first child, and I was it was big time for me. And my cousin came over. He had a kid, big burly guy. He has a daughter, but he's so soft around his daughter that I'm just watching him. I was like, golly, is this the guy I know? This guy, and honest to God, all right, I must say this, but again, no judgment, all right.
Yeah.
Put on collars and tiaras, and he had it on like this was his show, right? So. All right, this is what you're into. Okay, cool. And they're just watching together. And I just was something where I'm like, wow, a father would do anything for their child type deal.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm always thinking of stories. So I was like, maybe I could craft this. It's kind of funny to me, making me laugh. I don't think I'm going to be like that with my son, but all right, cool. Watching this right now.
Yeah.
So it was just a funny moment for me. And I was like, that's what inspired me.
Got it. That's great. Cool, man. Well, I would say this. So I'll talk about the opening scene, which is obviously the daughter in the pageant. I'll talk about that last. Going into the next scene, which I think was a a big moment because obviously your main character is getting out of prison. I would say, and I always tell people, you want to be, if race plays a factor in any way, you want to be as specific in description as possible with it. So from age, from look, stature, race, I think that's really important because what I was a little confused about is the first opening, you open the scene, well, the second scene, you open, your main character's getting out of prison. Then it cuts to Chung, his friend, and he says, you know, they N-word, but ER. You know, and I'm kind of like, well, is he a racist? Is he a friend? I didn't even know what the context of him using that word, you know, and then until I got to, you know, he got out of prison and I saw the dynamic of the relationship, I'm like, oh, they're friends. Okay. You know, and they have that type of relationship, but I had no idea. And one of the reasons why I didn't know is I didn't know what race he was. I didn't know he was a friend. I mean, he could have been an Uber driver, you know, for all I know. So I think in because you brought that, and then I think even going into the next scenes and the main character going back and seeing his family, I think there is a dynamic of race, of culture. I think I would definitely put that in there on your descriptions on both your main character and his friend.
Okay.
And then, so my question to you is, because I felt like out of the 10 pages, what I gathered most of it, what I took from it is your main character is, I mean, he's a visionary and he's very motivated on getting his life together and becoming a millionaire. And he has a plan. He's going to get a loan and he has a thought process to this. I think that's great. I think you do a good job earlier on showing your main character having a motivation, and he's going to go through this journey. The question though I had is, you didn't open, because I felt he was the strongest. That and his character was the strongest out of your piece, but you didn't open that. You didn't open with him getting out of prison. You opened it with the pageant and the little girl. And because I only read 10 pages, I didn't even know what the context was with that. Like, I didn't feel a type of connection because there was no moment where he mentioned that this is his daughter and part of his business plan is to maybe go into this world or bring his daughter into it. There was no correlation. So I'm wondering, I'm asking you is one, as a creative, why did you choose to open your story with the pageant? And then two, moving forward, what is his business plan? What's the objective?
So I started with that because I wanted to kind of get the theme across. And I was trying to state the theme where you don't, like, this pageant girl who's talking is saying that, you know, you are where you are. People, there's pretty people in the world, and then there's not pretty people in the world, and there's no really movement. And he's trying to change his life in that manner. So I wanted to show the fact that there's this element out there where this girl is talking that you can't come up, you can't change your life. And since it's about pageant, I wanted to like put that in the beginning because there's pages in there until he meets his daughter for the first time where there's no pageantry really in there. So I wanted to really state, look, this is about pageants, and him coming out with a plan. It wasn't a plan for his plan. He wants to do this, but it gets sidetracked as soon as he gets his daughter. So it's in the back of his mind the whole time, a story that he wants to get back to, look, I want to open this laundromat. And he talks about why he wants to open a laundromat. But I just wanted to touch on, this is his motivation, his goal. But like shortly after he meets the mother of his child, she was saying he goes to see her, and then she passes away like really quickly. And the daughter comes to him. The social worker brings the daughter to him, and she's not in the pageant world at all. And so there's pages in there that the pageants just aren't touched on. So I wanted to have that in there and also state the theme that you can rise above your status.
Okay, so does he know he has a daughter, or does he find out after the fact?
He doesn't know at all. He finds out after the fact.
Okay, and so you're saying that once the little girl's mother dies, she ends up living with him.
Yeah.
And she's not in the pageant world anymore?
No, well, her and her mother always liked watching, and that was his in with her because she always loves watching pageants, and he notices that when she's grieving that she gravitates that on TV, and so that's where he starts saying, look, let me try to bring you these pageants. Maybe you come out of your mourning, this helps you with your grieving, come out of these pageants. That's where they first connect.
Okay, so moving forward, he has a plan to open up a laundromat. It's a totally different idea and plan than, because he doesn't even know he has a daughter. And then once he finds out he has a daughter, and then the daughter's mother passes away, that gets derailed, and then he starts becoming a father and decides to help her. And within that, is there a time where he's trying to do both, or he just puts his aspirations to the side to focus on his daughter?
He puts his aspirations aside to focus on his daughter. We touch on it. We keep on coming back to it just as a point of what is his goal in the end, who is his character, what does he want, or why does he want it. So just quickly coming back to it, not making the focus. And at the end of the story, the daughter wins the pageant. They get the seed money, and they open Crystal Clean in honor of her mom. She called Crystal. He calls it Crystal Laundromat.
And he was in prison for 8 years, right?
Yep.
And then the daughter's what, 6 or 7?
7, yep.
Okay, so he didn't know. So how does he find out that he has a daughter, and that and how did the daughter's mother pass away?
So the mother's daughter passed away. Like she sent her daughters to dance class, and during a call when she's terrible, the dance teacher tells her, "Look, you need to go home now." So she calls her mom in tears, and while her mom is driving, she's on the phone. She's kind of getting emotional. She doesn't actually pay attention to traffic, and she gets sidetracked. And so from there, don't really focus on it too much. Like he takes her to the funeral, but after that, it's really just her kind of mourning, because I wanted to try to transition as quickly as possible from this is here. This is her new life type deal.
Okay, but how does the father find out that he has a daughter and that connection, since he didn't know in the first place?
So after the loan officer scene, he goes, he meets her. He goes home and he falls apart. He drinks. He's drunk. Next morning, he hears the doorbell. He wakes up to the doorbell. There's a social worker there saying, this is a record and file. He's like, I have no idea about this. This is your daughter type deal. And if this is 2 choices, you can go to the system or you can take her now. You're the only known relative that we have. And right now we're going to have to put her in. We just can't take her. We have to put her in some sort of care. And so it's kind of like his save the cat moment where he actually has to step up and say, all right, let's do this. I don't have a plan, but she can stay with me.
Right. And why did she not reveal that? Why did she not tell him that he was the father in the first place when she got pregnant?
Yeah, touch on that shortly. When he first meets, when he comes after the loan officer scene, he talks to her, and she's like, he was worthless. The character before was worthless. She didn't want anything to do with him.
Right. Got it. Okay. Yeah, then that makes more sense. That the way you started off with the pageant. Then what I will say though is I think it's important, especially within the first 10 pages, you don't tell us why he was in prison for 8 years. We find out through Chung's character. But you don't. They talk about it as far as him being in prison for so long and he's ready to get out. And Chung, talks about how once you're in prison, you're not basically once you're in prison mentality wise, you're gonna stay in that. You don't go out, and there's nothing wrong with just working to work and getting a paycheck. And he obviously has some bigger aspirations. I think it's important whether your main character tells it to Chung or other family members why he was in prison, because we don't even know.
Okay, we have about a minute left.
Okay, so yeah, I would definitely implement that in, and then that's definitely solid. So I think that's really important. And so basically, the reason why, at the heart of it, the reason why you started with the pageant scene is not necessarily about the daughter per se. It's a theme. Like what she's saying is basically the theme of one of the themes of this story.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Okay. No, that's solid. Yeah, I think it's really important, though, earlier on that we know why. Because, again, at first, the way you open the scene, we feel like it's about the daughter. And essentially it is, but the daughter is kind of the co-star to the male lead. And because the male lead, that character is so dominant after the first scene, I think it's important we gather as much information as we can earlier than later.
No problem. I like to know in the beginning where I just never thought to as far as explicitly put race in for all. It makes sense. It's a good note where, I appreciate that.
No problem, man. Great. Well, thanks. I appreciate the read.
Thank you very much.
All right. Great.
Cool. Thank you. Next up is Amber, and then on deck is Dan.
Okay, great. Hey, Amber, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, yeah, just like the others, do I see you? I don't see you. Are you just on audio?
I'm not. Oh, can you see me?
I can see you now. Okay. Great. So yeah, just like the others, if you can briefly just tell me a little bit the background of your script, what inspired you to write it?
Sure. There was many different facets that kind of inspired me to create the world. Mm-hmm. But if I guess I could distill it into kind of like 2 different factions, it would be one was I've always approached love from a very open place. And as I'm in my 30s and have had numerous heartbreaks, I was having a conversation with some of my other girlfriends post heartbreak, and talking about the switch between approaching life and love from that place of openness to kind of like a cold pessimistic first approach. And kind of offhanded, made the remark, well, maybe we're cursed. The closer somebody gets, the more we have to push them away to protect us and them. And so that kind of was the origin of that fantasy curse, essentially, that I'm playing around with. And then the other kind of major impetus to the Isabella and William story, and this idea that there is somebody, what if you had this great love that you were constantly searching for, through centuries and generations. And that kind of came from when I was actually doing my own family research, and my family is from Scotland. And I noticed that one of my ancestors in the 1800s, his name was William, and he married 3 Isabellas and then named his ship after an Isabella. And I was like, what the fuck is with this dude? Like, he's obviously, he's into this one person. Is he looking for somebody else? Is he, or is he trying to replace somebody else? And then there was other, numerous kind of inspirations throughout the journey of trying to craft this world.
Nice. Well, I think what I'll do, and thank you for sending me not only your script, but you sent me some questions. So I just basically, based on your questions, I answered them, and they were really, really good questions. So I'll just go, if you don't mind, one by one.
That would be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Absolutely.
I'm going to write as you talk. So if I'm not looking at you, I apologize.
And no worries too. I mean, I can send them to you as well. I wrote them down. So as far as your first question, it was in regards to your target audience. You obviously wanted to make this an adult audience, 17 plus or higher. I feel given the opening scene, given the violence and the serious tone, it definitely has an adult feel. I think you captured that well in the first scene. However, directly in the second scene, as you go into the high school scene, it seems more of a teenage feel as well. So I'm not to say that you need to change the actual location, but I just would see, if you want to keep it more of an adult 17 plus, try to keep the same tone from a dialogue standpoint from your first scene, carrying that over to your second scene.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then your second question, as far as, is your world clear? You said you were struggling a little bit as far as the backstory and the history. So this is one of the things, and it's more of a consistency issue. When you open up the scene, you don't open or let us know the world, specifically city, state, country. But then your next major scene, you have Eugene, Oregon. So is there a reason for that, or do you have an exact city or a state that you wanted to put in the opening scene? Is it the same?
That's great, and I do have one, but thank you for that.
Just I know it's a small note, but just to keep the consistency, you want to add that.
Absolutely.
And then your third question, as far as her Izza's a year, I say I would definitely need to make that a little bit more clear. And I think you can do that with Frank's character. I think you can elaborate more as far as Izza's background and her length of time as far as years and being around for so many decades upon decades with Frank's character.
Awesome.
And then your fourth question, there are heavy social themes, throughout the series, and so, so I would say you can make it subtle by not creating storylines with all the themes at the same time. And so I think what with premium cable shows, they do it really well. I mean, if you look at like some of my favorite shows are like Power on Stars, Homeland does this really well on Showtime. And if you look at Game of Thrones and so on, they usually, each episode has a story A and a story B. And a lot of times, with these premium shows, they have a multitude of different characters. And so or it could be a completely different characters, like it's an ensemble cast. And so, and within story A and story B, it could be maybe 2 things that's running simultaneously in that episode. Then the next episode, it could run. But then if you notice with a lot of shows, in the midway point of a season, episode 5 or episode 6 is the turning point, the climax of the series. And whatever that turning point happens with your main character, the themes can either change, get heightened, or there can be added themes. So what I'm saying is, I think what you did and what your vision, I think, is good. You have a lot of, I think, important themes that are really important that are going on in today, you know, quite frankly. And so I think a way to do it is you don't have to put all of them in one episode or a couple episodes. You can obviously flesh them out. So what I would do is I would look at maybe all your things that you want to convey, take the few that are more important that you think are going to be more impactful, that you want to start early and maybe oversee for the entire series. And then slowly but surely, as those themes develop, you can add and input other themes as well throughout the series.
I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Great. And then your last question, as far as anything unclear, dialogue, there was just, I think, one minor typo on page 4. I think it was skills. I think you just need to add another L. You just missed
perfect.
that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so helpful. Thank you so much, Nick.
No problem.
Awesome.
No problem. And and just I'll tell you, like, the likes. Again, I really thought your opening scene was really strong. I really like the description, especially against your main character. And I thought you used really key words to add visual. So me as reading it, you painted a really great picture. I mean, even for example, the way you described when Izzo was at the table and she's groaning in protest, like, I think that's a really strong description to see that she's fidgety. She's uneasy. She's unmoved. Obviously with Frank being there, which is great. So yeah, I think you give a really clear visual opening scene, and that I really liked it. I really liked it. And I like the foreshadowing of Iz's character as well. Just the fact, I mean, you said, to be specific, you mentioned that as soon as you opened her character, you said that she's beyond her years. And that's foreshadowing that she's actually, 859 years old. So I thought that was a really good note that you put in there earlier. Awesome. Yeah, and that she warned her parents, that she was already kind of warning her parents that Frank, this is actually not Frank. And we as the, audience, we are believing the mother, like, oh, she just barely knows what she's talking about. Just my other, the notes was just, I would, establishing the world and just adding that in the opening scene, since the next scene was in Eugene, Oregon, and then just making the tone consistent flow from the first scene to the second scene in the high school.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Or anything?
I guess my other question would be, as a producer and a development exec, what would you look for in terms of content with pitching a television series? What are some tips that I could apply to?
Oh, like on as far as like pitching, like how to pitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's really important on top of the script is a series Bible. That's really, really important. I mean, and that's something that I realized while working at HBO. A lot of the execs and even former, or not just like former, current showrunners that come in and pitch, they usually even have a series Bible. When I think in actuality, I mean, if you're a credible showrunner, you don't really need one. But what's really helpful for that is it shows the producer, the studio exec or agent, the overview, your vision of the entire story. And even you coming in as a writer, I mean, let's say a HBO picks it up, they're obviously going to hire a showrunner and other writers, and your story might change. But it's really helpful to show that, especially if they like your pilot, where's the story going? Because obviously the way, good pilots end, a good pilot ends in like a to be continued, wanting to know more, leading us into the world, the character and in that world. So I think having a good series Bible, and I always say, keep your Bible between 10 to 12 pages, obviously giving an overview of all your characters that we've not only seen in the pilot and what they're going to go through, but also the characters that you're going to introduce throughout the series. And then it's not an end all be all, but if you do have it, like a log line, like either a log line or even a short paragraph, a short synopsis of every single episode within that series too.
Perfect.
You have about a minute left.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
So that would be your pilot and a series Bible would be great.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that was my other remaining question.
Great, no problem.
Awesome. I'm wrapped.
All right.
You want to move on? Thank you so much for your time, Nick.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the read. And again, excellent questions too by you. So that was great.
Awesome.
Cool, thank you. Next up is Dan. On deck is Travis.
Dan, okay. Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Oh, fine, Nick. How you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well. So yeah, just like the others, if you can give me a brief background of your inspiration behind writing the script.
Well, it's a broad comedy, so I didn't have any great overwhelming, interest to right or wrong, or it's write funny things that are about something. And I'm a football fan, so the idea of a movie between the two footballs has never been done, a comedy. And I think therefore a little deflating, in a comedic sense. Yeah. And comedies don't do very well internationally, and I think I've been told anyway. I think maybe this hybrid of a quarterback versus a iconic soccer star ending up on a reality dancing show to redeem themselves could have a little bit of a comic life. So that's it. I like to write things that are commercial, and I think this is very commercial. I mean, I wrote it with Will Ferrell in mind.
Okay. Oh, nice. Right? Yeah.
And Madonna, I wrote as Sacha Baron Cohen. They were in Talladega Nights together. So
right.
I don't know who the hell is that me.
That was me.
Oh, okay. So, that's why I wrote it. It tickled me, and it still tickles me. I'm actually thinking, I've been getting a lot of the reaction to it as well. It's funny, but it's got a reality show in it, and that's hard to sell. So necessity being the mother of invention, I was thinking, well, it's already halfway to a musical because, the most of it, the second act and all, takes place on this reality show, Dancing with Defeat, which is, of course, it's like Dancing with the Stars. All the people are like celebrated public losers.
Yeah.
I thought, well, why couldn't it be a musical comedy, which actually means writing some, songs.
Yeah.
I've never written songs. I can't write music, but I think I can write a song. Anyway, that's kind of where it is.
So let me ask you. Yeah, I mean, you're a comedy writer, so I mean, essentially the songs would be funny. Right. So essentially writing a comedic song, like a song within a comedic tone to it, or a comedic dialogue to it that fits the tone of your story. So yeah, I definitely think you can pull it off. Let me ask you that: if you go that route. What's the storyline? What's the plot line of that of these two characters? As far as, are they going to compete in a musical, or how does that play out with your two characters if you go that route?
Well, they Chuck it far. He's the quarterback who, in the pages, he embarrasses himself so incredibly at the Super Bowl.
Right.
Goes from being a hero to a zero in one play, and he has to go on this show to get his life back and to get his wife back. I mean, excuse the rhyme, but and of course his arc is that he has this repressed ballerina complex. That he was obsessed with being a little ballerina. He never wanted to be a quarterback like his dad wanted him to be.
Right.
A ballet dancer,
right?
But now it's so repressed that it comes out in his play sometimes, and his arc is that he won't admit that he wants to dance, and when he finally will allow himself to dance, he will redeem himself to his inner self and his wife and all. Madonna, who you didn't get to read about, is different in that he is well, how you follow soccer
a little. How Messi is probably the closest thing to
religious icon in the world. I mean, the way people relate to these soccer stars is way beyond anything we have. I mean, we call LeBron the king, but nobody really thinks he's the king.
No.
Messi is the king. He's, you know, so his problem is that he's so famous that, and he's had so many women. He's never been married, no children, but he's sworn off women because he feels he hurts them so badly, and he feels he can't be loved like, you know, maybe Elvis would have felt. I mean, it's awfully hard to be loved if you're Elvis Presley or if you're Madonna.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got his partner on the show is an all-American girl named Tammy, who doesn't know anything about soccer, doesn't know him from Adam, and but Madonna won't even touch her when they dance. You know, he's so celibate, and he and of course, being a soccer star, all he has to do is just look at somebody dance, and he can do it. I mean, he's got the dancing chops of a Fred Astaire, you know.
Right.
And so his problem is kind of the opposite of, he's too good at it, and Chuckett is like not open to it. So this, as they move through this dancing competition where these other losers are thrown off one at a time, you know, they learn about each other. They learn about their footballs, and the villain is this producer, the British producer, who's kind of a Simon Cowell type character.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got all kinds of ulterior motives, basically to take both the footballs out. He wants them gone, and he's going to replace them with a hybrid football that can only be played in the only safe place for kids, which is playing on computer, you know. So it gets to be pretty high stakes, you know. Clearly it's a big broad comedy. It's not but it's about something, you know.
Right. So let me just make sure I'm following you. So you have these two characters,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because, and let me. Are you a Cowboys fan? Is that why you decided to choose the Cowboys?
No, I'm a Rams fan. It's painful.
Okay. Sorry about that. But so let me work with you here though. So you obviously Messi, he's, you know, soccer, it's beloved, he's an icon figure. In sports, what they say is the most beloved position in any sports is quarterback. And we obviously know Dallas Cowboys is quote unquote America's team.
Right.
So literally like the one beloved position, let alone team that you could possibly play for, is a quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Is that why you chose that?
Yeah, it's the iconic quarterback position. It's like playing center field for the New York Yankees. You know?
Exactly. So if you're obviously from a world standpoint, an international standpoint, the biggest you can get sport-wise, symbolic-wise, is this soccer player. And the closest thing we have to that you can think of is not only the quarterback in football, but the Cowboys. And then the symbolism between the two is it's both football. It's just a different sport. So you put these two together. And so what you're saying is when you put them in this world of this reality show, there's not competition amongst them. They actually like each other. They're friends.
Well, no, they don't like each other in the beginning. There's a back story between them, which actually has to do with how Madonna humiliates himself, because he's older. He's like nearing the end of his career, and he's such an oddball that he was actually exiled from Real Madrid, which is like, you know, one of the great iconic soccer teams in the world, to this MLS Real Salt Lake City, which actually exists. I couldn't believe it. You know, I mean, what a place for you know, the greatest soccer player in the world to be stuck in America, in Salt Lake City. And he doesn't really like America very much. He thinks, but he does have a secret love of fast food, which he has to keep secret because, you know, that would totally so he's got all kinds of things pulling at him, and he does humiliate himself, but they are enemies actually when they first meet.
Okay.
I have
But
about a minute left.
So let me ask you this though, but because there's some similarities, but there's differences. On the one end, on the American side, he didn't want to be a football player. You know, he didn't want that. He wanted to be a dancer. Now on the soccer side of it, did he want to become a famous soccer player? Is this something
that's all he
passionate
is.
about?
He's a soccer player who was a billionaire, and now he's a zero error.
Okay.
He has no money. It's
Got
all
it.
been stolen. He can't even read very well because his it'll turn out that his Ramses, his helper, his aide de camp, whatever, been stealing him. They both came out of the favela in Rio, and Ramses is stolen and blind.
Got you. So I think one compelling element that you could play on, and I don't know if you've done this in the script, but it obviously sees from the soccer standpoint is that he's had, you know, a man's dream. He can get all the women that he wants, but in actuality, he's bored about that. He wants a real relationship. And on the other end, he has that. He has been married. And so I'm wondering if there's a dynamic where they can talk about that. You know, they can talk about like what really, we have all this glitz and glamour and I have all I want, but I really want what you have, which is a family, which is marriage. I think you could play on that. I think the comedy side of it is pretty solid. I think it's funny, and I think the tone is right. I would say that, you know, you're being very descriptive on the soccer side. Play on, and whatever that is, play on that comedy. Play on that he doesn't like America. Play on that he's this godly, iconic figure. Play on any type of soccer international comedic dialogue that you can input. I think play on that, because I think you do a solid job on the American side, and the football and the Cowboys, like all that element plays on well. But to answer your question, the reason why comedies don't do well internationally is internationally they don't understand the comedy. They don't understand the jokes. And so I think your vision creating a broad comedy, I think it's strong because you're pulling in this international soccer superstar. But in order for it to translate, there has to be some type of dialogue and comedy within that's relatable, that people internationally can get and understand.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I've done some of that. I think the dance is also universal.
Yeah, and so how
everybody understands. It's kind of a universal troika there.
No, you're right. So would you implement the dance in the reality show, or would you get rid of the reality show and just make it a dance? Like that's the thing. Like, oh no, sorry, not the dance, the musical. You said that one of your notes was musical.
There would be a point where they would have. It wouldn't be a musical in the sense that there's always music going. It would be kind of in the La La Land sense, where they're kind of set pieces. Like I can see Madonna singing a ballad, kind of, I'm too famous to be loved, you know? I mean, that's basically his lament.
Got it.
You know, Chuckets would be, I can't dance, I'm a quarterback. And he actually he loved to dance. And so he's not turning his back on football. He just has to turn towards being a dancer.
Got it.
Okay. So that's kind of it. Yeah. You know, I'm kind of shooting for the stars here with Will Ferrell, but you know, obviously anybody can do it.
You never know. You'd be surprised, you know? So yeah, no, I think you have a really strong star. I definitely think that it's just because you have co-characters. These are co-stars. It's not one, and it's not your main star and a supporting. These are two co-characters they're really important in their own world, in their own sport, and they're coming together. So I think it's important that you don't have one character overshadow the other, and as much emphasis as you put on from the comedy, from the background of your one character, you need to put that same on the soccer side too. And so I think that's really, really important as well. And if you play on that, you will get an international appeal that way.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Next up is Travis, and then on deck is Deb.
Hey, Travis, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, man?
Good, good. I don't see you. Are you here or are you just on audio?
No, I camera's on.
Okay. All right.
I can see you, Travis.
Okay. Well, yeah. So yeah, just Travis, tell me a little backstory of your script. What inspired you, and are you writing it?
Yeah, this is based on the first novel I published under my pen name Todd Langley, which is, as far as I know, it's still required reading for English Lit students at Monmouth University. It's partially based on personal life experiences whenever I myself was a drug addict. And then I've had a lot of friends and family member who are ex-military. So I just kind of combined a personal story with kind of a dystopian soldier story. So I just wanted to make it in the future.
Okay, nice. So that was like the entertainment value of it is making it in the future, making it, obviously, because most soldier stories that we know are taking place in the past. They're period pieces. So you decided you want to tell an authentic story that takes place in the future.
Something that could happen that would really suck.
Nice. Okay, so my question is, and I always tell this to writers, description and it's the little things that are so important for the reader. Whenever you're telling a story that takes place, that's not in the present, that takes place in the past or the future, it's really important to open it up with that. So with your story, do you have a specific year or is it just somewhere far out in the future?
And this is something I've considered and obviously open to, if anybody ever wants to pick it up and want to make it this year, want to really establish early on that it's not Earth or that it is Earth. I can go either way on that. I like that it's vague because to me, really, really good sci-fi makes you ask as many questions as it answers. And I think the reason that there's a lot of criticism of sci-fi right now is too much of it's spoon-fed. Like what made the original Star Wars great was that exact thing. There were way more questions than there were answers in that movie. Mm-hmm. And you have the fundamental story, of course, but which is the boy meets girl, saves the day, blah blah blah. But like the world itself made you ask a lot of questions, so that's my motivation behind doing that, being vague right there.
Okay, so
some other areas. So
that's the reason why you decided not to put like a year or even mention that it's somewhere in the future because you want to leave it vague. Okay. Yeah. So let me ask you this, because again, I only read 10 pages. How is the reader, how did you write it in a way that's going to allow the reader to know that it is something in the future? That's going to be like futuristic.
If they didn't have I think the first 10 pages have the flashback where he's coming off in the kind of Saving Private Ryan type. He's going into battle. Mm-hmm. And you see that they're fighting synthetic humans because when they explode, their blood's color different. Mm-hmm. That, and whenever you have, I think it's right there on the first page, whenever he steps out of the post exchange, the view around the desert around shows dead spacecraft. There's spacecraft, over there landing and dumping off more soldiers, but it's basically the shanty town, kind of like District 9.
Yeah.
Except, District 9 obviously had the giant spaceship, but in this case, you just have like, maybe one or two small ones over there and then, dead ones out in the middle of the desert. So.
Got it. Okay. And so let me ask you, what's your vision? What's your overall vision for this film?
The overall vision, the comp is that, Full Metal Jacket meets District 9, but really as far as like tone and execution, I liken it more to, say, Reservoir Dogs. It doesn't have a big torture thing at the end, but it's a character-driven punch in the face with a bunch of fucking guys. Mm-hmm. In this case, soldiers, not, guys who are going to rob a bank, but it's still a fucking bunch of guys.
Yeah.
And you have, like, the one kind of good guy, but he's also a bad guy. But he's trying to be a good guy until he finds that he gets screwed over. And then he's got to be the bad guy. Harvey Keitel, basically.
Right.
A character-driven punch in the face that has a really big payoff at the end. So that's what fundamentally.
Okay. Cool. And so you're saying tell me with it, because I mean the hard sell. It's funny because there are always a few genres. Crime, especially crime in TV, is always a sell. I mean, crime has shown. I mean, TV and film, crime has shown through decades and decades that's going to be a success. That's going to draw people in. It's
Sure.
crime. And then secondly, war films. Any type of war films.
Let's combine that. These are
Right.
soldiers who are criminals.
Yeah. And so my question is that outside of it being futuristic, what's going to separate this film from other soldier films as far as the narrative and as far as the characters?
It's more honest. It shows the dark side of soldiers, because the setting is that these are soldiers in the aftermath of war who are addicted to the amphetamines they had to take during battle. So that's where the drug addiction comes in. And that's basically what they're after almost constantly, is they need to feed that addiction. But they're not being dialed back to the general population because a lot of them have PTSD. But these are soldiers that are not being allowed back into Gen Pop because they're considered too dangerous. And so their situation is hopeless. And so that's part of what makes the story different, because this could happen. This actually did happen to some German soldiers after World War II. They were addicted to the amphetamines they had to take during combat. And they were basically put in their own kind of concentration camp, which they weren't, gassed or whatever, but they were just left there to die. I think it's not an anti-war movie, and it's not an anti-soldier story. I think it's a pro-soldier story. It's like Born on the 4th of July. That showed a side of the soldier story that wasn't glamorous or pretty. It was just honest.
Yeah.
What I'm shooting for here. And that's really the tone, the emotional payoff for this is like, oh fuck, we can't ever let that happen. That could happen. Right. We can't let that happen. And soldiers that I know have read this script, that gives them chills. So I know it's going to connect with them.
Wow.
I know about that.
That's great. Now, with so many type of soldiers and war films, it's always about like the location you're in. Like location, like it's there's world. Sci-fi is about the world.
Sure.
Crime is also about the world, but specifically a centered location, a city, an area. Mm-hmm. With war and soldier, it's about that area. Whether you're being specific as far as a city, a state, a town, a territory, it's the confinement within that. Are you creating?
That's bounced off the MPs. So we also get the MPs' perspective later on they're being policed as well. They're not just out there by themselves. So they have military police, knuckle draggers, who are the police. And so we find out what the boundaries are, why they're here. Part of the world set up the scene through their eyes. So that reflects a lot of what you were just getting at.
Okay, that's great. Okay, yeah, I mean, those were pretty much all my questions. I mean, I feel like, my biggest note was that but what I liked is I thought you had a really good grip and hold of the story. The story made sense. It flowed well. And again, I was very visual, very descriptive and very visual. So I got it. My note, but now you explained it, was I just didn't know why you didn't highlight within the story that it is, futuristic. It's sometime in the future.
Because I wouldn't have known like 2 suns in the sky right off the bat, and that would say, okay, distant foreign world. But one of the things I liked about the newer that last Predator movie with where all the soldiers were dropped out of the sky. Didn't know they were on a foreign planet till like halfway through the movie. I liked that payoff. Mm-hmm. But, again, I'm open-minded about it. If somebody wants to okay, we want to establish this right away that it's not Earth. There's 2 suns in the sky. Yeah, just do that right away, and I think that'll.
Yeah, but I think it's okay. I mean, I missed that, and I wouldn't have known that and again, I've only read 10 pages, and I wouldn't have known that it was a futuristic world unless you didn't write if you didn't write that in the email, I wouldn't have known that. But I think it's okay, because now talking to you and seeing where you're trying to take it, I think it's fine. And I think you did give some good examples on sci-fis that we didn't deliberately know. It wasn't spoon-fed to us that we're in the future, but there's subtleties. So I think it's totally fine that it is subtle. There is subtlety.
Well, right now, I think it's about towards the 3rd act where him and a love interest, there's 2 moons in the sky. So I put 2 moons in the sky much later, and then you're like, oh, so
okay.
they are. And then there's hints, with the dialogue, but as long as that opening scene was clear as far as, okay, there's spacecraft over there.
Yeah.
And then
You have about a minute left.
that's good. Yeah, awesome. No, thanks so much for taking the time to check it out and give me your feedback.
No problem. Man, it was a pleasure to read and keep on the good work. That's great.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So Deb's next.
I am. Hello.
Hi, Deb. Hi, Deb. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So yeah, just like the others, if you can give me a brief backstory of your script and what inspired you to write it.
Sure. Turning Point is based on a novel I wrote about 10 years ago. And
Okay.
When I wrote it, I really saw this cast of characters in my head. And so I really saw it as a movie as I was writing it. But the inspiration behind Turning Point is a pretty sad story. It's my dearest childhood friend was violently abused by her husband. And I watched it for several years, many years, and I could never understand why she didn't leave and why she stayed. And I realized over the years that everybody has their own turning point. I mean, my turning point would have been first time you put your hands on me, I'm out the door. But for her, it was he nearly killed her. So I guess I wanted to write. I always write and when I'm working through issues, and this was one that I worked through. So it was just one of those things. She's happy now and she's fine. She's out of the relationship and she's healthy and happy. But it was a very dark time, and so it was hard to watch. And so it inspired this book, and it inspired me to, adapt it so that someday, maybe it can be brought to the big screen or TV.
That's amazing. And, because this is, and look, what I learned, what my former boss at HBO told me, taught me, and what we really try to stress to our writers in our program is write what because the executives and agents and producers that read your material, they're going to know within 5 pages if it's authentic or not. And just like what Travis just said, I mean, he wrote what he knew. And when I read it, I'm like, okay, he has a good grip of this story. I feel the same with yours. And that's one of the reasons why I asked, what's your backstory? What inspired you to write this? Because I'm always curious from a writer's standpoint, does your material that you're writing hit home to you, in any personal way? And so usually the best material that writers write are stuff that hits home to them, that comes from a very honest place and a real place. So I appreciate you sharing that with me, and that's great. And so given that this obviously, is based on true events, it's personal to you, you wrote a book about it. Did you talk to your friend that you were going to, do this and then try to turn this into a script? Do you still talk to her about this and characters, or you're kind of now taking what you know and creatively adding some different elements to it?
Well, she's read it. She's read the book, so she knows, the stuff. But most of it is a fictionalized version. I mean, a lot of the things, Derek, who is Belle's husband in this movie, he has a lot of dark demons, and I fictionalized what those dark demons might be. And but a lot of the abuse and the things that he said to her and the things that he did to her, I mean, there's one scene that's much farther in where, Derek almost kills her, is almost exactly what happened between them. So it's just one of those kind of things, So I do still talk to my friend and keep in touch with her, and she knows all about this, and, it's changed enough that nobody would know it was her.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like it's a true story. Anybody who's read Turning Point, people who read Turning Point actually think that I'm the abused spouse. So a lot of people reach out to me saying, are you okay? And are you abused? I've also seen there's some reviews on Amazon, which is kind of funny, where women are like, I got so mad at this book because I just wanted her to leave. I didn't understand why she just didn't walk out the door. And they gave me a bad review. They gave me like a 1 star.
Oh,
and
wow.
well, it's because everybody has their own turning point. That's the point of the the book is that,
Yeah.
and this whole story, that the screenplay as well is, this is her journey. This is her turning point. It's not anybody else's.
Yeah. Did you brand the book? Did you brand it as based on true events or the script? Okay.
No.
So from the reader's point of view, they think that you're creating this story and they don't know why you decided to write it in that way as her not leaving quick enough.
Exactly. I mean, I think that as I'm going through the story, I think it's pretty clear why Belle doesn't leave.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's things all the way through, and when she gets involved with Landon, he asks her because he sees the bruises, and he asks her, "Why don't you leave?" And so she goes through, all the cliches and that kind of thing. And so I think it is stated why Belle didn't leave and where her turning point is, and when she finally decides that she has to leave for her, and she has to leave so that she'll live.
Right. So you had mentioned that Derek, right? That's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Derek. You obviously Derek was abusive, and you had mentioned that you go into why that is, like his backstory and some of the issues that he has, which I think is really good on your part. I think that's important, not to add any justification for what he did, because there's no justification, but there is, when you deal with abusive situations, there is some type of backstory, whether it comes from your childhood, your family dynamic, environment, something. And so my question is, moving forward within your story, is do you highlight that? What part in your story do you highlight? And then what specifically are those issues, those situations?
Well, the very opening scene that you read with the lady and her two daughters in the van.
Yeah.
Derek is driving the other car. He's driving drunk in high school, and he kills them.
Oh, we don't know that.
No, you don't know that. And you don't find out that till much later in the story. And so with Derek, he's, his whole thing is, Belle comes home and he's constantly in high school. I used to be the shit. And I, was the quarterback of the football team. And I was going places, and then I fucked it all up. And then he takes it out on her. And so he can, there's all these little cues that something is coming, that there's a reason Derek is. And then at one point, Derek has a breakdown. I mean, he's not a completely unredeemable guy. And he has a breakdown, and, he says, I killed people, because I was stupid. I killed little girls. I took their future away. And he begs Belle to forgive him and to help him. And then the next day, he's back to his normal, shithead self. Mm-hmm. So something's coming, and then of course the whole culmination of it is that Landon was the little boy, and that didn't die in the car accident.
Okay.
And so it all comes together, and in the end with a gigantic, big climax scene. So and in the end it's interesting. I mean, I'm just gonna give away the ending, spoiler alert, but Belle, Derek and Belle are in a car accident, and Derek actually wraps himself around Belle, and he dies and she lives. So he ends up saving her life. And so it's kind of, he probably wasn't redeemed all the way, because if he didn't die, he would have gone on to still be an alcoholic, jerk.
Right.
But in the end, he's redeemed in that way, that he ended up saving her.
And what a coincidence that he died the same way that he killed someone else in a car accident.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, I would say, it's interesting because one of my notes was I was a little confused in the beginning as far as who these characters were in relation, because seamlessly at the end of that scene when they get in the car accident, it seamlessly goes into the evening. But in actuality, this takes place in the past, though, right?
Yeah.
And when it goes into the evening, is that the present?
Yeah.
Light rain. Okay, so I would put, because you have. Okay, so so the way it's read, the way I'm reading it is it's present time, because you don't put like a year. Is there a reason? A choice? Yeah, like I would, because it's in the past, I would put I would put the year, since obviously Derek was a teenager when this happened. Now he's an adult. In the beginning, to let us know that this is in the past, and then once the car accident actually happens, then I would go into present, Because the thing is if you do that, that just gives context to where the story was to where the story is, and you're not revealing that Derek was the killer.
Okay. Now, I did have a question, if I can jump to that really quick, is
You have about a minute left.
Okay. Do you think that there's too much space between the present day and Belle standing on the side of the road putting the flowers at the White Cross? Or if I flash to the present day, is that too soon if Belle's standing? Because I wasn't sure where to put that scene, that she's standing at the White Crosses on the side of the road putting flowers. So
say that one more time. You think it's
right after the scene where they die or the car accident happens?
Yeah.
Is it too soon to, when I go to the present day, putting flowers? Is that too soon, or is the time and space of her, doing everything in the bookstore and closing it down and, kind of going through her
motions? Oh, right. I don't think I think because we don't know in the context of what happened, I don't think it's too soon. I think it's okay. Do it right after. I think that's fine. I think the key though thing is, I think showing, because the way you wrote it is as if it's in the present, so it's just going to another scene, and then we're in the store. I think if you break it, and the way you break the scene down is showing that this is the past and now we're in the present, I think that's going to help kind of break that opening scene. So going to the present and her putting the flowers, I think that's okay, because we as the reader know that now we're in the present, and you're still not giving up really the heart of that scene, of that car accident.
Okay.
Because essentially what that opening scene does is, one, we find out later it established that Derek was the killer, and then two, there's symbolism. And this is the beginning of your story. The ending of your story is Derek is saving a life in a car accident. So your opening scene acts as two things that we don't really know. It's not revealed until later on in your story, which I think is good. But I think it breaking it up and showing that it's the past, present, just by putting the years, I think will help.
Thank you for that note. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for allowing me to read it.
Thank you.
Cool. Next up is Jeff.
They always, belittle the bad guys. And I went, well, wait a minute, you're not giving them a chance. You don't know what they've come from, what their world is like, or any of that kind of stuff. So we started talking about, just their tweaked world and why they're so angry and that nobody understands them. It got to be very funny, and so that's why this world is kind of a flip side of looking at the superhero villains. So it's, the lead is the woman who's thrust into this world to be a teacher. And she suddenly discovers that these kids are all kids of supervillains. And she's like, what have I got myself into? So it's kind of a fun, different way to look at it.
Hey, Jeff?
Yeah.
Hey, sorry. You're the wrong Jeff. There's two Jeffs in the chat.
Oh,
it's actually
sorry.
the other Jeff Sturm. My bad.
Okay.
Yeah, because I saw that and I wrote in the chat. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, wait. What Jeff? Okay, what script?
The Legend of the Bubbleheads, Jeff Thompson and Bernard King.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool.
Okay, all right, perfect. It's based on an urban legend in my hometown of St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
So it's been with me. It's been with me for years and years and years. We kind of grew up with this sort of urban legend about this family of disfigured cannibals. What happens when you go back there, and sort of like this place that we would visit, especially around Halloween. So what I did was to create some traction with it. One day I was just playing around with my iPhone with some friends, and we shot a little teaser concept trailer of what could potentially be, and it sort of got semi-popular online.
Mm-hmm.
From there it got picked up by a few horror media outlets like Dread Central, Horror Society, and and Shadow and Act on IndieWire. So that led to some interviews on that. And yeah, from there, me and a writing partner by the name of Bernard, we wrote the script and, got it, to a couple of eyeballs and stuff like that. And I managed to connect with the special effects coordinator from the Conjuring film series. And he made like a miniature of one of the characters of what would be in the film. So that was pretty cool as well. So, there's been a little work I've done on it. And the script, I'm just looking to take it to the next level.
Nice. That's great. How many drafts have you written, the script, you and your partner, thus far?
I say, let me see, probably 3 solid ones so far.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 solid ones so far, just based on the feedback that we've gotten from, different people. Just 3 solid ones so far.
Great. Okay, great. Well, yeah, I see that you had some questions, so I'll go through them. So your first question you asked me is, am I intrigued by the story? And I would say there are some elements that I am intrigued by. I think the cop dynamic that you have, and just I think writing also a story that's about current events. Things that are elements that you're writing in the story that obviously pertain to what's going on in the world, I think is a positive note. And so, and I think, just creatively, your idea is pretty, I wouldn't say all the way out the box, but I think it is creative enough and unique enough. So I'm not surprised at all that you do have some eyeballs on it, because it's definitely not something that we normally see in an everyday medium. So that was solid. Let's see, first 2 scenes aren't okay. So one of my questions is, there's 3 major scenes that I read, and I felt your strongest scene out of the 3 was the last one. And so my question is, and correct me if I'm wrong, you start in 1945, right? Mm-hmm. And then it jumps. So what was the creative idea of starting in 1945 and then it jumping so quickly?
We just recently we added that one not too long ago, actually. So I'm glad that you asked that question. But we started in 1945 to sort of set up a backstory of how the family began a little bit.
Okay.
Sort of, in a way, it was sort of cryptic. It didn't give too much detail, but it sort of revealed more as the story progresses forward, that type of deal, because I didn't want the reader / audience to know too much up front, and to sort of keep them on their heels and keep them suspenseful.
Got it. Because I felt like the writing and the visualization was good, but it felt like the 3 scenes from the opening scene, and then the second scene which was the hunting scene, and then the third scene, they were 3 totally separate scenes. They felt like 3 different stories. And so, I was just wondering, like, what was your idea from? So I got your idea from the first scene and why you wrote it. So going into the second scene, the hunting scene, what was that thought process like?
The second scene, the hunting scene, was basically to show the family making its first kill, so to speak, and establishing the story, letting the audience and the reader know that, this is a horror story, but you can't necessarily see the killers in that scene. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they're sort of in the shadows, but someone is being killed, right? And the character that's actually is killed in that first scene is related to the main character, Todd. So that sort of sets it up on how he's going to encounter them later in the film.
Got it. And you said that you and your writer wrote the introduction, the intro scene. You guys just recently added that. That wasn't the original opening.
That wasn't the original opening.
Was the original opening scene 2 or scene 3? Or was it a totally different?
Scene 2 was the original opening.
Okay, got it. Because I could personally see scene 2 or even scene 3 be the original opening, versus scene 1. So I don't know. I think if you want to keep scene 1, I think you can flesh it out a little bit more. But I just feel like it doesn't flow as well as scene 2, and let alone scene 3. And you always want to start really, really strongly. And out of the 3 scenes, I think your third scene again is the best, and the strongest scene between the 3. So but I get what you're saying. You wanna give kind of, you know, an opening and an understanding on what to expect, but you don't want to reveal too much. That makes sense. But the way I'm reading it is, it's so vague that I don't know really where the story's going. But I think what makes scene 3 so well is that this is when you're kind of getting more in the heart of the story, and it's more descriptive. I have more of an understanding, but it's obviously taken me a few pages to get to that point.
Right. Understandable. And thank you. That's something that we're definitely going to work on and establish that even more and make it more engaging.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was pretty much the you know, the biggest thing or the one weakness that I saw. But your overall idea, and again, I think it's highlighted in scene 3, is it's just really visual. It's very descriptive, using the dialogue that you used and the within the world that you created. I can definitely visualize. I can see where your story's going. I can see the characters. I can see the confinement of the story. I thought you did a really good job. So I think you're onto something, but because that's the third scene, we have to wait a little bit to get there. So if you either decide, you and your writing partner, to take that first scene out, or we work it, just look at some of the nuances that you did in the third scene and add that in the first, so it could be as strong, entering it as it is going on to the third scene.
Okay, we'll do. So just make it more engaging and more interesting.
Yeah,
and, you know, help it flow a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe even too, and, you know, and again, I know a big part of it is you don't want to reveal everything, but maybe if you can add a little bit, maybe you and your partner can sit down and says, okay, is there maybe even something more descriptive, more elements that we can add to give the reader a little bit more context to this without revealing it, you know, might help as well too. Because it's just, when I'm reading it, there's just questions that I have moving on to the second scene, but then the third scene, it's way more descriptive. So maybe even that, if you guys do decide creatively you want to stick with opening your story with that scene.
Right, we'll do definitely cool. We'll do.
Cool, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate the read, and thanks again for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much for your feedback, and it's very highly appreciated.
Not a problem, man. Best of luck to you and your writer.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. And next, who's
cool? Thank you. Next is Karen.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Karen. How's it going?
It's good. Thank you for chatting with all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, tell me a little bit of backstory of your script and what inspired you to write it.
Awesome. So I am the daughter of Christmas tree farmers. I grew up on a Christmas tree farm in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
And,
okay.
Yeah, and it's not happiness. Like, Christmas tree farming is hard. It's miserable. You have to shape the trees into a perfect shape. You have to spray them with green. You have to, you know, spray them for pests, and they die. And, like, it's this horrible, miserable thing that people work really hard for like maybe $8,000 or $9,000. You know, you don't make much money as Christmas tree farmers.
Wow.
So,
wait, I'm sorry, that's 8 or 9 for the whole Christmas season?
Yeah, you don't make much money. I mean, we're selling them in Indiana for like $30 each, so you can't sell like a whole lot. You know, $10,000 a year is a good return on something that you bought for like $2 and put in the ground 10 years ago, right? But it's not. You have to have my parents were other things as well. My dad's a geologist, but okay. So this was supposed to be like a fun thing we did for a Christmas, but
yeah.
Instead, it's like everyone's miserable from Thanksgiving to Christmas, at least while we're selling the trees. And they're very Christian as well. And so I grew up repressed, not allowed to do anything, not allowed to watch television, not allowed to have a voice or an opinion of any kind, really. Like, women's voices just aren't very strong in the Midwest in general. And I moved to New York and like became brazen and strong, and I was in the camera union, and I just did whatever the fuck I wanted all the time. And then I moved back to Louisville, Kentucky, which is near where I'm from in Indiana, and forgot that women are repressed, and forgot that like this still exists, and this is the reason why there are 13 men voting on women's health care, and these are the people that voted for Trump. And like, So I wanted to write a show about women's repression in like a candy way, in like a spoon-fed way, like a comedy Handmaid's Tale. Like, how can I write about women's repression in the way it was for me, which is, you know, Christmas tree farming.
Got it.
So, you know, I set it in a town that is just, the entire show would take place in this one little area. So we would be at where we sell trees, at the bowling alley, at the Chinese restaurant, at the church. Maybe there's a gas station. And I have an episode where they open a library, but it's mostly just like, you know, Christian books and like one science book, things like that. So all of it, I wanted to write a small town show too.
Okay. That's great. So, another thing that I like to tell writers too, I mean, especially if they write a show or a film that the environment, specifically is really important. Yeah. And, you know, I think as a writer, you have to look at it from a reader perspective that, you know, we sometimes as readers, producers, we can be naive, you know, and so you just said it, you're writing a small town show. You have to look at it from your point of view that, is my writer from a small town? Is my writer from the Midwest? Is my writer even know what this town's about? And so being as descriptive as possible about this town, I think is really key because, you know, essentially your town is a character in itself, right? Yeah. So my question to you, because, you know, I don't know Indiana that well. I know a few cities, but I didn't gather, and you might have this later on, what city in Indiana? Because you said a small town, and I'm sure there's smaller towns than others. I'm sure there's even, Indiana could be considered, I guess, a conservative state, but I'm sure there's certain towns specifically in Indiana that are more conservative than others. So if that's your town, I would, one, put the name of the town, and within your character, I think you can do this in a creative way. Have your main character unload the issues that she has with her town. And what essentially that means is she's actually telling the reader and the audience the issues with the town because we might not know. Great. We're entering in her world, and if we're not from Middle America, the Midwest, Middle America, let alone Indiana, we don't know. Yeah. So really, really, really showcase that. Okay. And again, and I'm being big here, but Martin Scorsese and Spike Lee and Dick Wolf on Law and Order, they're so great at showing, bringing in the world that they're trying to capture. New York is a character in itself, that highlights their mediums. And they do a really good job with the characters, the look, the feel, the language, the dialogue of what New York is, within their medium. I stress that with this type of show, you have to do that, especially because, we as an audience from bigger towns, metropolitan areas, we're not going to know. And we want to know. So I would definitely highlight that. I think it's a unique idea. And like I said earlier, I think in my first comments, is that right now what is really hot is strong female characters. That's popular. Whether they're strong female white characters, strong female black characters, it doesn't matter. And I think what we're also seeing is strong, educated female characters in metropolitan areas. So what you can take is, well, I have a strong female character, but now she's in Middle America. She's in this conservative town. This is a story that hasn't been told. So I think that's a unique spin on it, but I think you really have to drive that home. Okay. One question that I have, it's a consistency thing, is you show there's a lot of characters that you introduced within the first 10 pages, but your main character, we don't know how old she is. Oh. You didn't, and I think that's I was really kind of confused on, okay, that's so important, is to see, because it feels like she's a little rebellious. She seems a little young and she listens to AC/DC. So does she have this, is that kind of a symbolism that she has this rebellious, rockish type of streak to her, or is she older, a little more mature? I don't know. I can only assume because I don't know her age.
Yeah, so she's 18. That's just a mistake.
Okay. Yeah, that's important. And then it kind of comes across, and this is my assumption, but I'm saying this as an assumption because I didn't read it this way, but is she from that town? The town that you have her in, she's actually born and raised there. Yeah. Okay. So I think, because it feels like the way I read it is that she might not be from that town. She might be from Indiana, but moved there, because the way she comes across is that she's so shocked and she's so taken back by what happens, versus she's used to, well, even though she doesn't like it, this is something that she knows of and she's going to do something about it. Now, I think how you fix it is just what I said earlier, by letting us know how the town is. Basically having her complain about it, complain about how conservative it is, complain that there's no women's rights, complain that, look at what the world and what's going on, and look at what's going on in New York or going on in other areas. Like, I want, this, like, so I think the way, if you can, you stress that and you unload on that, that can show that she's fully aware of the town she's from. She's not naive about it, but she has an issue with it.
Cool.
And so what I gathered in the first 10 pages, with the bowling scene, is that going to be one of the main obstacles in this series? Is her, not being able to bowl and her needing a bowling team? Is that one of the obstacles, or is that just one?
That's just the pilot, and then she's stuck on a team with her ex-boyfriend who's trying to win her back, a guy who lied, who's actually from Rome, Indiana, and not Rome, Italy, who she likes, and she's wrestling with that problem. Okay. So this Giuseppe character is actually just from another nearby small town, and he's a liar, and she really likes him, but he wanted to be bigger, and so he lied. And then she's stuck on a team with a girl that the girl's face she licked that actually is really mean to her, because she secretly has feelings for her because she's repressed as well, and can't, and is probably a lesbian, but can't act like that. So she's stuck on a team with 3 people that she doesn't it's like a foursome of love and intimacy and repression between the 4 of them. So they're going to go through regionals and all the way to state in the first season. It's going to be about like the bowling season. Okay, so the obstacle, her issue is women's rights, women not giving a fair share, equal opportunity, and that's her issue, that's her outcry. But you're showcasing that issue in the confinement of bowling and a bowling team. Yeah, because bowling is the most rock and roll thing you can do in this town. So there will be, next episode, she wants to get black outfits for them, but she finds out women are not allowed to wear all black. Okay. She finds out women are not allowed to to drink on Sundays. Women are not, and she tries to talk to the town council in the episodes as well. So it'll have a little bit of a Parks and Recreation feel, where she goes up against the town and tries to change the rules, but she's not allowed to speak without someone else sponsoring her that's a male. These types of things come up all the time. Mm-hmm. Got it. So
you have about a minute left.
The way I read that, the bowling scene, is I felt like, well, is this, because I like where your story's going as far as her issues and her outcry, but is the bowling big enough? Yeah. But on the flip side, again, it's a small town. So what I think you need to do is you need to stress that bowling is the end all be all to this town. Okay. The same way, if you're doing a movie about skating and you stress about skating is everything, or dancing is everything, that's totally fine, but you have to stress that. And I think that just goes into really showing, everything about this town and the issues and the small town mentality. Okay. You have to you have to make the bowling bigger than life, because that's what it is. So let the reader know, okay, this is really, really important and this means a lot. Okay, I'll do that. Excuse me. Bless you. Thank you. Do you? I. So if Parks and Recreation, if using that is bad because that's a network show, or if that's okay. That's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's basically saying that there's some themes and some elements. That's totally fine. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Did you get a sense of like her point of view, or I need to sort of, because it sounds like her point of view was a little confusing to you, and whether or not she was from here, or so if I clear up that she's sort of becoming rebellious
then that'll make her point of view clearer to you?
Yeah,
maybe?
like from a point of view, I get her point of view. I think you wrote her point of view in the sense of I have a good sense of feeling of her issues and what's troubling her. I think you convey that well. I just I think what you need to add on is and you do that. I think you do that by highlighting and stressing all the issues that she has with this town.
Okay. I'll give her that wish song monologue then.
Yeah. Stress that. Yeah. And I think if you do that, then I think, I wouldn't assume or ask the question, is she even from this town?
Okay.
And then, even you can, in going into that, adding like, bowling is everything. Like somewhere, whether it's her or someone else, explain that, bowling is the end all be all, in this specific town. It's the culture.
Yeah.
Every city, every town has a certain type of culture to it. Obviously, on one end, the culture is being very conservative, women not having equal rights. That's something that she's fighting for. But also in the interim, the culture is bowling. And now these two things are running smack dab in her face, and she has an issue with it, and she's going to try to push against that.
Okay. Great. Those are really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you for the read.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Now, Jeff, it's
Yeah.
your time to
Hello.
shine. Sorry about that. I should have been more specific.
No worries.
Hey, Jeff. Yeah, so if you can go back and tell me a little bit about your script and what inspired you.
Sure. The script is kind of a superhero comedy. So what inspired me was I like take my nieces and nephews to all the superhero movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of funny because, they get really into that and their worlds and everything. But they were always like belittling the villains and everything. And I said, well, you don't really understand their viewpoint. It was kind of teach them kind of a little bit of understanding of people. So then we started creating worlds and talking about, what their worlds would be like and how they would be, kind of tweaked compared to ours. So that's what really got the whole idea started.
Okay. Got it. And so this is obviously a feature.
It is a feature right now, yes. I actually had this pitch to somebody who turned to me and said, have you thought about doing this as a series? So I'm keeping that in the back burner, but right now it's a completed feature.
Got it. Okay, great. So let me ask you, one point, I noticed that there was one thing that I don't want to say harped on, but one thing I noticed that stood out was the oversized clothes and glasses. Is there some type of theme with that of having?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because what that is about is the lead, Clara's whole growth through this thing. She doesn't believe in herself. You find out halfway through the movie that she is a superhero and she hasn't known that. So there's this theme of believing in yourself. So at the beginning, she's hiding from the world and hiding from herself.
Got it. Okay. That's great. And then, so one of the questions, where does the daydreaming begin with Clara? From 20 to 6 on page 5. Can you go in more detail with the whole daydreaming as far as where is it?
As to what role it plays?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with the daydreaming, what it is as you go along, is she the daydreams are like pulling at things and you're seeing things pop in and people. And as you go along, you start to understand, wait a minute, there's a lot more here. And then it's about, like I said, once you discover halfway through that she has superpowers, and then towards the end, we find out that the principal, the lead evil man is her father. So we have this going on. So it's kind of that Luke, I am your father situation that occurs.
Okay. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. One of the notes that I had is I felt like Claire getting suspended, I felt like it happened really abruptly. Like it just happened kind of out of nowhere. Did she give her kids the answer on the test while she was daydreaming? Because it went from she was in the room,
right.
She's daydreaming, and then it kind of out of nowhere she kind of gets suspended, shortly after.
Right.
But I just didn't feel like I didn't really see where did the daydreaming end, like stop, end, and then go into.
Okay. I guess it's not clear because what her superpower is she's a clairvoyant. That's her name is Claire. She's a clairvoyant.
Mm-hmm.
And she can read minds and jump in and out of people's minds. That's her superpower. So I was trying to give hints to it without being too obvious in the beginning. So maybe I need to be a little clear.
Yeah, I think going back and reworking that, I think that's good that you're not trying to be obvious, and that's a great play on her name. I think going back and just reworking that and seeing if you can be a little bit more clearer, more descriptive without obviously revealing it.
Okay.
Would be great. And then can you explain a little bit, just from a creative standpoint, what was your thought process in writing the first scene? What was your vision on writing the first scene and then going into the second scene? Moving on to the second scene.
Right. I went back and forth because I originally had it started with the daydream scene or the, what's going on in her past and then going from there. And a couple of people said, I want to see this world right away, that this supervillain, bizarre, alternate universe from the very beginning. I want to see what it is we're in for. So I went back and forth, and so I started with this world and these supervillains, and you find out that they're actually heading up a PTA meeting. It's like, what? Kind of a thing, kind of tweaked and bizarre. So a couple of people felt that set the tone better than starting with her mysterious start and her mysterious background. So I went back and forth on that one.
Got it. So let me ask you because you've gone back and forth and you got in some notes, in your thoughts, what do you like better? The way you originally wrote it or how it is now?
Well, the way I originally wrote it, I thought there was a flow from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
But starting with this unique, unusual situation, everybody what? And so they like that juxtaposition.
See, yeah, I liked your first scene, and now hearing what the note was, and it makes sense. You want to start off with that. I just feel like the first scene doesn't flow as seamlessly into the second scene.
Okay.
It feels like two separate scenes. And so I'm not surprised that this wasn't your original opening scene, even though the scene is written well. So what I would do, and it makes sense to have that be your first scene. I just would look at your second scene and see if there's a way maybe you can kind of flow it seamlessly a little bit better. Because it just feels like very separate scenes. Both scenes, but they seem independent.
Okay. Probably if I end with that first scene talking with the line about the PTA meeting, if I start off the next scene with some discussion about PTA before we go into that. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Goes right into that. That's good. That's really subtle, but that's effective.
Okay. Got it.
It's great. Yeah, those were pretty much all my notes. Everything else is really solid. I think you have a good grip on this story and a good vision for it.
Yeah. It was interesting because like I said, I originally wrote this as a feature. And somebody came back to me and said, if you did this, it's kind of like a cross.
Because before you said that, before you just mentioned that every episode would be like a different villain, my question to you is how are you going to expand on this character? Because I always ask people, because TV is so popular, it is the medium right now in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of writers who originally either wrote or had an idea to write a film, and then they've gotten notes or have thought of maybe let's turn it into a series.
Mm-hmm.
And I say there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to ask yourself that you've taken a script that's, 90 minutes to 100 minutes, and now you're trying to expand on that to a 10 to 12 episode series.
Absolutely.
Or season, let alone series, 4 or 5 seasons. So you have to ask yourself, how can you expand on your characters? How can you expand on your storyline? Is there enough material that you either have or that you can create to expand on that? So if you didn't say that, I would say I don't know if there's enough material. Maybe a one-off. Maybe an anthology series. Maybe it could potentially work. But the fact that you do, if you wanted to incorporate a different villain, then that's a possibility. That's definitely potentially could work.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for allowing me to read it.
Thank you, Nick.
Best of luck. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And I appreciate you taking the time. You've read a lot of different projects, it seems like, huh?
Yeah, no, but I enjoy it.
Thank you.
All right.
Cool, thank you. And last but not least is Gia.
Gia, how's it going? Hi, Gia, you there?
I was still muted. It's kind of going backwards and forth between muted and not muted. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, I suppose. Super busy right now, but yeah, how are you?
I'm doing well. So yeah, just like the others, Gia, if you can give me a little backstory and just tell me a little bit what inspired you to write this script.
Bloody Mary actually was supposed to be a straight out horror film based upon the Bloody Mary legend of, goes speak in the mirror 5 times and she comes out. And that's what it was originally written as. But the more I thought about it, the more I didn't want her to just be a mindless kind of, I'm going to hop out of the mirror and kill people. So what she ended up being was she starts off as a scientist, and she's going to develop into this, it's kind of a horror superhero film, basically, based in Brownsville, Brooklyn. But she starts off, and you just see this progression of who she becomes after she kind of dies and is resurrected as this Avenger, so to speak, almost.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And so how many scripts in are you? How long have you been working on this project?
I started working on it about 2 years ago, and I got halfway through it originally. And what I realized is that because originally it started off as post-apocalyptic, she's living in this town. These guys come in, they break into her house, they kill her. One of the last things she does is she does this curse. She goes into the mirror. And now, instead of her killing people who call her, she is an Avenger. So when you go into the mirror, you speak into the mirror, she comes out. She doesn't kill you. She kills somebody else, somebody who deserves to die, basically. And I got halfway through it and realized that there was no third act. It was just, it went from this living, breathing person to her chasing down these people. And I'm like, it's just, to me, it's been done before.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something completely different. So we're going to see this progression of her actually going through and trying to solve a problem. And the avenging part of it is just incidental. She's actually trying to figure stuff out. So I think that makes for a more interesting character.
Got it. Nice. That's great. Well, yeah, as far as my notes, I think one of the first things that stood out is your pacing. I think I really like the pacing throughout. It flows well. I think going into the story, I have a good grip and understanding of where we're going to. It's not dragged out, but it's paced out really well. So I thought that was good. I think you established, and when I mentioned pacing, being more specific, I think you just do a good job at establishing your protagonist and antagonist earlier than later. So
okay.
Great. I like how you created a sense of urgency with John's character, just as far as him trying to get out at the same time. but not him trying to get out, but not knowing, us as the reader not really knowing what's promised. You know, I like that. I thought that little note that you added there was great. And then one thing though is, as far as Rosemary's character, let's see. Oh, so yeah, I like Rosemary's character, but I didn't know earlier when you introduced her, what's her overall objective. Like, I didn't get a sense of what her objective is. But I do like that the back and forth that you created as far as between her and Danger. So I do like that interaction and that engagement. But just to ask you, like, what is her overall objective?
Well, initially, she's trying to figure out what this stuff is. So she works at this lab, and they got this compound, and nobody knows what it is. And she's trying to figure out what it is and where it came from. Eventually, what ends up happening is our antagonist gets a hold of this stuff, sells it to the guy that she's talking to. And I call him Danger. His name is actually Warrant. I fixed that in the second draft.
Okay.
He actually ends up selling it to this guy because this guy runs a drug gang. So remember in the very beginning when he says, hey, don't snort it, this guy cuts this compound that nobody knows what it is with drugs. And what it ends up doing is anybody who takes it, yes, it attaches to their muscles, gives them super strength. But what they don't understand is eventually it starts to atrophy them. So she goes to the movie trying to figure out where this stuff came from and why is it killing these people.
Wow. Okay. Wow, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I mean, because we as the reader, we don't know that, but I think what you do create with Rosemary's character and the engagement between her and Danger is you show us based on that engagement how strong and confident of a woman she is. And is that my assumption is that's going to play out throughout the whole story?
Yeah.
Great. I would say now one of my last and kind of note in continuation with Rosemary is I would be, I think I mentioned this to a couple of other writers in this group. Be as descriptive as you can with your characters, especially your main characters and characters that are going to be very prominent in your story. And I feel like based off of how you introduced us to Rosemary and the interaction and the engagement that she has with Danger, I get a sense that you didn't write that literally, but based on the interaction, I get a sense that she is a very confident and strong woman. What I would do is when you introduce her character, I would highlight that with your descriptions as far as she is. You show that, you write that she's African-American and she's in her 30s, but what does she look like? And what type of personality does she have? Because when you do that, then that's a mental note to your reader. And then when you go into her character and having that engagement with Danger as you do, it actually justifies it. Because you're letting us know that, well, she's a strong, confident, beautiful, or intimidating woman. And then when you go into, basically you showcase that with her interaction, that just for the reader, like, okay, that's believable. That's adding the validity into that. So I would definitely highlight that in Rosemary's character, be as descriptive when you introduce her.
Okay. Yeah, because in that neighborhood, because that's where I grew up, that's where I lived for a long time. That neighborhood is you kind of have to carry yourself that way.
Okay.
As a female in that neighborhood, I mean, this is a neighborhood that during the heyday, when crack really hit my neighborhood, crack cocaine, we averaged a homicide every 24 hours.
Wow.
About a year and a half.
Wow.
And so you have to kind of walk that walk and not take any crap from anybody.
Yeah.
Or, it just screams victim if you don't. So.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think from a writing standpoint, you did that, and I'm assuming you're only gonna expand on that. So I just, from the descriptive standpoint, when you introduce that, I would highlight that.
Okay.
In a few words.
Okay.
Great. Well, that's all I have with your notes, but good job. Very, very strong start.
Oh, good. Thank you. Because I was a little worried about that.
Yeah. No, it was good. I enjoyed the read.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I believe that looks like everybody. Thank you so much for staying up with us. And thank you, Nick, for all your advice and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. I really appreciate reading it, the material, and best of luck to you. And the best advice I can give is you guys just got to keep writing, just keep at it. So thanks again for allowing me to read all your material.
No, cool. Thanks everybody and take care.
All right. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.